And welcome y'all to Conversations with Dean. I am Dean and I am back and I am better than motherfucking ever. Yes, I know I wasn't supposed to be cursing this early in here, Mr. Producer, but I can't help myself because I'm back and the people are excited because I'm excited. And I promise you, I will never, ever leave you like I had just did. I know I took a little bit of a break, but guess what? There ain't going to be no more breaks, nothing. Because you know what? This world don't stop. This news don't stop. And guess what? Y'all need to come sit under the learning tree of your cousin Dean. Yes, baby. Yes, baby. And with that learning tree, because, you know, cousin Dean, you know, I'm educated. I'm trying to sit here. I'm going to put my glasses on. Yes, people. Yes, people. Dean is coming with glasses. So, you know, it's damn serious. Now, listen here, folks. Let's have this conversation here. I myself am sick of white fragility. I've said it. I've said it. I've said it. I'm sick of it. And usually when I'm coming on here talking about white fragility, I'm usually speaking on the Democrats. Now, I want some white tears coming from Republicans, white Republicans specifically. And I want those white Republicans who happen to have an issue with critical race theory. Come to the front of the congregation so you can sit under the learning tree, son. Sit under the learning tree, your cousin Dean, so I can go ahead and teach you and learn you something about your history that you continue to run from, about your history that our educational system loves to whitewash. Yes, there is going to be none of that coming over here with Dean, baby. Y'all know what it is. You knew what you tuned into. Listen, make sure. But before we get into any of this, I want you to do me a favor. Make sure, because listen, if you're listening to this right now, that means that you bang with your God. You bang with your boy. So what I need you to do is like, share, and subscribe this bad boy for me. Make sure you comment on the channel so that way if you click it and you give it 5 stars, more people can go ahead and get this message, hear this message. Make sure that you're going to go ahead and you share this damn video because what I'm about to bring for you is going to be bigger and badder than ever. So let's go ahead and let's go right after critical race theory. So here's what we're going to do, people. We're going to go right ahead to this Wikipedia machine because the Wikipedia machine is going to have a real plain definition for everyone. I know some people have issues with Wikipedia, but we will be able to agree that this is going to be a very good standard definition that any and all of us can go through while I am eviscerating these Republicans, specifically white Republicans who are going against critical race theory. But honestly, anyone who is really against critical race theory, let you be white, let you be black, let you be Spanish, let you be Asian, let you be a convolution of motherfuckers. You can come from 4 different nationalities. I don't give a damn. But if you are speaking out against the topic and actually having critical race theory taught within Americans' school system, within the American education system, there's something wrong with you because guess what, people? You cannot teach American history without teaching critical race theory because guess what? For a very long time, the people in power who were white did some very terrible things to the people who were in power, the blacks. It starts with slavery, then we're going to go down the road to the Emancipation Proclamation, which is then going to lead into the Jim Crow, of segregation and Jim Crow. We get out of that. Everyone thinks it's all peaches and creams. And then after that, you get into the war on drugs. Then after that, you get into the gerrymandering of districts as well as redistricting of them. And then we look at the voter suppression. So listen, when you tell me that you don't want to have a conversation about critical race theory, I look at you and say you don't want to have a real true conversation about American history. Yes, people. I know my regular listeners are like, Dean is on it. Yeah, your boy is back, and I'm listen, sit under the learning tree, people. Sit under the learning tree. So let me go ahead and learn you something, baby. We're gonna go ahead and do you something. Now listen here, people. We're about to go ahead to the goddamn Wikipedia machine. And here we are. So now let's look at this definition of critical race theory. Let me not get my Nadav on. Let me pull it up for y'all so y'all can go ahead and see it. We're good. You got a good screen on it? All right, good. So critical race theory is an academic movement of civil rights scholars and activists in the United States who seek to critically examine the law as it intersects with issues of race and to challenge mainstream liberal approaches to racial justice. Critical race theory examines social, cultural, and legal issues as they relate to race and racism. And the critical race theory originated in the mid-1970s with writings from several American legal scholars that are listed right there. So now, okay. There's going to be a lot of people here when I'm getting on this topic and going crazy. They're going to be like, well, what Who says that you know what the hell you're talking about, Dean? Well, besides being a black man within America, that this theory speaks directly about my experience growing up in it now, as well as my parents and my grandparents, and then my great-grandparents and great-great-great-parents, how that what the theory is speaking of. But also too, I am a sociology major with a concentration of criminal justice, and I happen to also have a minor within religious studies. So yes, I am very studied, I am very learned on this particular topic and subject. All right, so I'm not going to be coming out of here talking out the wazoo. So now, critical race theory. Let's talk about it. So let's go back early. Let's go back early, because remember, we're examining social, cultural, and legal issues and how they all relate to race and racism. Now, we all understand that we had the Emancipation Proclamation. When that happened, it was Abraham Lincoln. He signed the 13th Amendment. He said that, not signed, but we had the 13th Amendment enacted, and he went ahead and he said, listen, the slaves are free. There's going to be no more slavery. We saw how the South took it. Obviously, there was a war because of it. The Emancipation Proclamation is a byproduct of all that that smorgasbord of craziness. And then, listen, people are going to argue that, Lincoln didn't really care to free the slaves. He only wanted to preserve the Union. And to preserve the Union, you needed to free the slaves. And the only reason people even cared to free the slaves in itself, it wasn't even because they thought what was happening to black people within the South was terrible, unrighteous, ridiculous. That was not the reason. The reason was because Abraham Lincoln needed to preserve the Union. And to preserve the Union, you had to stop the slaves, because what was happening was that the South was having free labor. So since you had the free labor, they were effectively devaluing this dollar ridiculously, and the reason being is because in the North, we weren't able to have proper true competition. You having real true trade and barter up here in the North, and in the South, you're literally taking advantage of these individuals that had no say in anything involved in this bullshit. So now you have a fucking war. The North wins, the South, you fucking lost away your Confederate flag. Now I can use to wipe my ass legally. It is what it is. You insurrected motherfuckers. You ended up losing. And so then when you lost, we enacted that, right? Now, once the 13th Amendment goes in, all these states in the South were having to then, release the slaves. Now, with the releasing of the slaves, you have the heavy creation of the unions within the North trying to combat that, but we're not going to talk. We're not going to talk about that today. Not yet. So now what happens is, on June 19th of 1865, that marks the day when federal troops had to go down to Galveston, Texas, and they had to take control of this state to make sure that every single slave that was within captivity, against their will, was then free to then show what was really going on within America. That is, boom, we got that right there. Now, it's funny, because Juneteenth is not something that has been taught in schools recently. It's not. The reason I know that it's not is because there are a ton of, when I'm at work, and when I say, hey, I'm taking off for Juneteenth, or I'm doing this for Juneteenth, or I got something going on for Juneteenth, everybody's like, well, what is that? Oh, that was when we were all free. Because when America was created, July 4th, 1776, there was a whole bunch of slaves. So we didn't really have true freedom until June 19th, 1865. But there's so many white people who don't even know that. If you don't know your history, you don't know where you've been, you have no idea where you're going, and you're bound to repeat the same mistakes of the past. And when I see Republicans fighting against of wanting to have critical race theory taught within schools, I'm seeing that they want to fight against history such as this. You don't want to speak about how shit was within America, because then we can come right out of this, and then now we can talk about segregation and the Jim Crow laws. Let's get into that, people. And you know what? Fuck it. Let's go right to history.com. The history. Let's go right there. Let's go right there. We're going to go right here to, this is the medium that a lot of people will agree with. This is a source that most people have no issue with. So we're going to go right there. I'm trying to keep this thing as apolitical as possible when I am bringing up any of the information, because I don't want people to say that, oh, you're using this, oh, you're leaning this way. No, this is about right and right, wrong and wrong, and how you fucking Republicans or anybody who was against the real true teaching of critical race theory has lost their fucking minds. It's the truth, and I'm not here for the nonsense. So now listen here, let's go. So now when we're looking at the screen for the Jim Crow laws, we're going to go ahead and zoom this in. Now, listen here, people, because I know there's a lot of people listening like, oh, well, we know what Jim Crow is, we know what this is. There are some people out there who do not. There are some people out there who the history has been whitewashed. And I am here to make sure that history is not whitewashed. And you are not going to do to my history, continue to do to my history, what you have done to the Native American history. How for years within America it was taught originally, and this is the issue, and this is what nobody wants to have. Hold on, before we even get into this, this is the reason why so many of us are fighting to make sure that our history is told correctly within these schools for this educational system. Because let's look at the Native Americans issue. It was taught for years that Thanksgiving was a day that the Pilgrims and the Indians came together, that we gave them food and goods. You know what I mean? They gave us land. That is what is taught. Am I correct? That is how it was told, that it was a good union. It was told that it was a union that helped catapult American greatness. But what is not told is how you motherfuckers brought disease to this land, to the Native Americans. What is not told is how you lied, you cheated, and you stole. You was pulling Eddie Guerrero before Eddie Guerrero was even thought of. You came over here and you took the land right under them. You came over here with mass slaughter. There was no conversation about oh, what we can do for land. No, what happened was war came over here, because that's what's in your fucking blood. And you know what? And it's not a racist statement, because that's what history has shown me. That's what history has shown me. You see something you want, you come over here, you slaughter, and you take it. And listen, it is what it is. You won that bout. Yes, you did. You came over here. You sure enough enslaved them. You sure enough damn near fucking destroyed the whole Native American population. You almost did that. And then even today's day and age, you're not even respecting the sovereignty that we within our country and our own laws gave them, and putting the pipeline all head through their shit. See, you motherfuckers, and when I'm saying you motherfuckers, I'm talking about you fucking Republicans. For some reason, you do not want to call a spade a spade. If you're going to be big and bad, then be big and bad, motherfucker. The same way that you sit there and you will tell black people, oh, why would you vote Democrat? They do nothing for you. Because guess what? You motherfuckers, you son of a bitches are literally the champions of fucking racism. And I cannot understand why. I cannot understand why you, I can understand why you're champion of racism, What I cannot understand why is how you can say in the same breath why black people do not want to vote for you. And here, and you know what? And it's a reason why. Because of things like how y'all treated our Native American brothers and sisters, who a lot of black people are really Native American, but that's another conversation for another episode. Or we can just, we can just strictly talk about in direct correlation to us, which I was getting to earlier, is Jim Crow. Jim Crow laws were a collection of state and local statutes that legalized racial segregation, named after a black minstrel show character. The laws, which existed for about 100 years from post-Civil War era until 1968. Let's talk about that for a second. And we had laws about segregation. There were laws in the South that black people had to go in the back of a restaurant if it was a white-owned restaurant. You had a white, you had a white water fountain, you had a black water fountain. You had a white funeral home, you had a black funeral home. White doctor, black doctor. There was no coexisting, there was no mingling of them until 1968. It was meant to marginalize African-American officers. Did you know that there was a point in time in the South that black police officers could not have a gun or a badge if they were serving the white community? Did you know that? Did you know that? You people, you fucking Republicans, you ones who like to yell Blue Lives Matter, did y'all give a damn about them back then when you were sending them into hostile environments with no kind of true protection for themselves? Someone, you got to make it make sense to me, baby. You really do. And this, I know people thinking, well, what does that have to do with critical race theory? This is the education that gets left out if you want to sit here and protect these motherfuckers' feelings. Because guess what, Republicans, especially white Republicans, you have no problem hurting black America's feelings when it comes to telling us about our issues. You have no problem pointing out our fallacies. But the minute we point out not even your current fallacies, We're trying to talk about your historical fallacies to show why you're getting away with certain shit in today's day and age. You're fighting so hard against it. You motherfuckers rather stay in 2021. You rather stay in the bed with racism than fucking get out of it. Listen, matter of fact, I'm gonna say this in a better way because you won't understand that. White America, white conservatives specifically, you hate black people more than you love your freedom. That's the truth. That is the God's honest truth. That's why you whitewash everything on our history. That's why you don't want to talk about how the reason that the KKK was even founded was after that the blacks were freed from slavery, because you thought that we were going to go ahead and get with all your women, rape and pillage your communities. You thought we were going to come after you and do to you what you did to us. That's what you thought. That's how the Ku Klux Klan was originally created. People thought that you know that originally in the movies, the Klan was depicted as the good guys. They were your neighborhood watch before you had neighborhood watch. You understand what I'm saying here? So when we want to talk about not teaching critical race theory, we want to talk about not speaking about that. I know you're saying, well, how does this intersect with the law? Jim Crow was the law. It was legal for them to do this. The Black Americans, fuck it, not even Black Americans. My grandmother, who is still alive, she has siblings who are still alive. I have great aunts and great uncles still alive from the South. My bloodline comes from the South. That's where both my mama and my daddy side come from. They come from North Carolina. They come from Virginia. They come from Alabama. They come south of the Mason-Dixon. Did you know when they had to move around? Did you know that it was a high point in my mother's side of the family? Because my mother's side of the family comes from Sunbury, North Carolina. It was a high point in my family that my grandfather was one of the only black people who had a car. And it also happened to be one of the only black people who was actually referred to as Mr. and Sir by white people. That was a big fucking deal during segregation, unfortunately. You see what I'm saying? So my family knows about this, but that happened to just be in that town. Because when my family was traveling elsewhere around, you know what they had to use, Mr. Producer? They had to use something called a green book. That green book told them where they could and could not go, where they could and could not eat, what towns to stay away from. Because here's what happened. Because you had segregation, and because racism was so deeply rooted within American history, you would have individuals in power who be championing it. How many individuals have been linked, current day law enforcement officers, to white supremacy groups like the Ku Klux Klan, like the Proud Boys, who was taking money from fucking China before the whole goddamn thing went down with storming the Capitol? But that's another conversation for another day. This is where you people were. Y'all had the positions of power. So when my people were out here getting lynched, getting beat, it was legal. When they were marching for segregation, when they would just have a peaceful sit-in, your cops would allow your patrons to beat the holy shit out of them. Your law enforcement officers, when we were having the civil rights marches, you would come out with your firefighters, with your German shepherds. The police would come out with the German shepherds. Firefighters would come out with the hoses. And you would spray black people. You would allow your dogs to bite black people. Why? Because it was legal. Because black people, all they wanted to do was be seen as equal. Fair. That's all we wanted, fair treatment. But see, when we talk about not teaching the critical race theory, we don't want to really teach and talk about that, do we? How? Because of historical implications, generations of black Americans were never able to truly get on the same footing as their white counterparts. Is that why you don't want to teach this theory? Do you not want to teach this theory, white America, because it's going to truly show how much you have benefited from your lies, from your mischief, excuse me. How you have been able to move forward off of the backs of black Americans. This country would not be where it is today if it was not for the black person, the black man, the black woman. It doesn't. I could give a fuck less about your feelings. I could care less about your white tears. I'm not fazed by them. I want buckets. I want more of them. It's not enough. So I got it. So I have to continue going. Now, I could continue on with the Jim Crow laws, right? And how critical race theory would affect the education and teaching of them, because even now they're not really taught the way they should be. It's not, you know what I mean? In schools, Emmett Till should be taught. In every 50 states, the story of Emmett Till should be taught. The story of how there was just a black boy coming from Chicago to visit his family. Lived in Chicago, went down to the South to visit his family. Saw a white woman, thought she was pretty, ended up whistling at her. You know what the ending of the story was? His home being stormed by white, and they even got some black people with him. Stormed this boy's house, took him out his house, beat him, stabbed him, lynched him, set his body on fire in certain parts, threw him in the water in the woods. That's what happened. And then you want to know what's even funnier? They got off. They got off. And then racism is so embedded within American culture that the fucking bitch, Burnett, the fucking dirty cunt, she goes on air and literally recounts some of that. Even says Emmett Till didn't do some of the things that she said that he would have did. Over exaggerated. She said this, but we won't go ahead and prosecute her and put her in jail. Why? We will put Nazis, if we find a Nazi anywhere that was implicated with anything against the Jews, with helping Hitler do that terrible thing, they will go to jail. It doesn't matter their age. But within America, racism was so embedded, it's not even taught correctly. You whitewash everything, and now you're trying to take away critical race theory. That's what you're trying to do? Is that what you want to do? Well, I'm not going to let you do that, baby. I can't let you do that. And the reason why is because we're going to still continue on this story. I'm just giving you historical examples of how race, law, and social constructs have allowed the disrespect and the put down of Black Americans, and how you white Republicans or Republicans in general want to continue to whitewash history to make yourself not look as bad. And I, Dean, refuse to fucking allow it. I will not stand for this. It's ridiculous. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You know what's funny, Mr. Producer? Do you want to know what's funny, Mr. Producer? Let me tell you something. Now, white Republicans love Ronald Reagan, even though to Black America, he's the fucking devil. He's Satan. They love Ronald Reagan, right? They love George W. Bush Sr. When they voted those motherfuckers in office, do you know what they were running on? They were running on strong policing, making sure that we were able to protect our kids. Even Nancy Reagan had, when she was the first lady, she had this real big thing about drugs. Drugs are bad, saying if you smoke weed, it's going to look like a fried egg. This is the shit that they were with. But that rhetoric, the laws that they wanted to put back into place, or maybe even expand upon, a lot of that groundwork was fucking laid by Richard Nixon. And we all know Richard Nixon is famous for the war on drugs. But there is something that needs to be said, because one of Nixon's advisors, one of Nixon's advisors, John Richmond, or whatever it is, he had said some very interesting things. And I'm going to go to Newsmax right now. I'm going to share this so that you motherfuckers can see what I'm about to see, because it's all tying in together on just how when you continue to want to whitewash history, you don't want to really show and teach people what's going on. But Dean is going to, because Dean doesn't give a fuck. I'm not going to sit here and let you run and try to say critical race theory is one thing when it's not. Critical race theory and the education of it is showing you motherfuckers fucked us over for years. We've been saying it for years, and now you want to sit here and stop the education of it because what's going to happen is eventually you're going to have to give us reparations. Don't worry, that's in the final act of the show. I'm going to crescendo there, but I gave you a little bit of an hope for where we going to, baby. Yes. As the ticker at the bottom says, clean up your white tears because Dean isn't fazed by it. I'm not. So, it was stated, and it was quoted by John Ingle Richmond, or whatever the fuck his last name is, who was the advisor to Richard Nixon. He said the Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily. You see how there was no conversation on, mental health when, comes to heroin and, in addiction back then. That's another conversation. Back to the quote. Then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. Of course we did. That is the quote coming from the advisor of Richard Nixon, who was the president of the United States of America, who was running on a platform on the war on drugs, who was just to go against his own enemies. He said it there to disrupt their communities, arrest their leaders. What did you do when you did that? Look at the time that he did that. This is also the same government where Dwight, you had not, I was about to say the wrong name, but the head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover. It was him. J. Edgar Hoover said that there will never be another black messiah. He said that there will never be another black messiah unless America builds him. There will never be another Martin Luther King, never be another Malcolm X. This is the same government who shot up Fred Hampton, who was the leader of the Black Panther Party, shot up his bed with his wife sitting right next to him who was pregnant. These are the things that they don't want taught within critical race theory, within schools. Because you know what happens? What's happening is the right is trying to spin this. They're trying to spin it and say, oh, they're trying to teach that white people are evil. They're trying to say that we're bad. What we're saying is that your ancestors wasn't shit. And maybe your grandfather, maybe your father, depending on how old you are. That's what we are saying. Yes, some of you are the fucking devil. Some of you come from the loins of fucking evil. It is what it is. I'm not saying that you yourself are evil, but what I'm saying is that your ancestors have done some really fucked up shit to my ancestors on this soil. On this soil. American history has seen time and time again. Black people have to fight for what we believe in, what we see is right. And truly, we're always seeing and whenever black people see something that they say is wrong, or they see something that we need to be changed, we're not even looking to become better than anyone. We just want this to be an equal playing field because we're all supposed to be Americans. Am I right? When you're born within these 50 borders, you are an American and you have certain unalienable rights. And the one thing that history has shown us with white America is that you love to disrespect Black Americans' rights. So once again, you Republicans are doing what I should not be surprised of. Trying to whitewash and stop history, baby. It's fine. I'm not going to let you do it. It's a whole bunch of us not going to let you do it. We're going to stop you dead in your fucking tracks. And the way that I'm going to stop you dead in your tracks is let's first talk about the states that are looking to ban critical race theory. And mind you, people, I only gave you 3 examples because there are so many more There's so many more stories. There's so much more of Black history that America does not teach. There is so much of the Black plight that America does not teach. What I did was took three of the biggies, three of the big ones, and explain to you if you take out critical race theory, how you won't be either they're not going to teach those topics properly, which they haven't, they've shown in the past, or they're just going to completely omit it. So then we're going to have generations of kids believing that, oh no, this isn't how society goes. Like how in Texas, they had made it seem as if all slaves weren't unhappy, and how they were trading, what did they say? Labor for housing? I'll get there in a second. Don't worry. Don't worry. We're going to get there in a second. But do y'all see what I'm saying here? Mr. Producer, am I saying anything out of bounds right now? Am I hitting it on the button, Mr. Producer? Am I hitting it on the button? There we go. Now listen. I'm going to take you to an article from thehill.com. Now, thehill.com, what this article is showing us is going to show us each state that has either or is fighting to stop critical race theory being taught within that state. And what I want to make sure I do is put on blast for all of Black Americans so we can see where the ignorant white people and some ignorant Black people going to come from. If you're taught within the public school system, we're going to have to know who we got to educate. The first state that we're going to have to educate is going to be Arizona. We're also going to have to educate Arkansas. We're going to have to educate Idaho. We're going to have to educate Iowa. We're also going to have to educate Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Michigan, Missouri, New Hampshire, North Carolina, no surprise there, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, West Virginia, as well as Wisconsin. And depending on the state, there are different things that could happen if critical race theory is taught within the school. You can be fined. You can also be fired. You know, your school could end up losing some of the money that it gets from the state, lose funding. So there's a lot of things that Republicans are trying to do to stop the education of your ancestors and how savagery and how nasty, how disgusting, how evil, how fucking devilish they fucking were. I'm not scared of none of you motherfuckers. Your fucking daddies were racist. Your grandfathers were racist. And right now, you're showing me you yourself are racist. It's amazing. You know what? Hold on. Let me calm down. Let me break it down. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Let me breathe. Let me breathe, because you know what? I want to make sure that everything I'm saying is sticking with you. I want to make sure that the picture that I'm painting is crystal clear. I don't want anyone to feel that I was just getting too excited, getting whatever the case may be. I want to make sure you hear me. So I'm calming myself down a little bit, because this next topic I can't help. I really just can't help but just ask myself. It comes down to this. I hear all the time from Republicans. It's a Republican talking point. Why do Black people not vote for Republicans, bro? I just don't understand it. I don't get it. Why would y'all vote for these motherfuckers? They don't care. You vote that way all the time and nothing changes. This is why, you fucking goons. You fucking piece of shits. This is why. Because you motherfuckers are the champions of racism. Republicans are the champions of fucking racism. I don't know. Listen, I don't understand why in 2021 you can't fight it, but this is what you do. When you Republicans, when you vote for the redistricting of districts, right? Because you almost lost an election and you want to cut that county up. When you vote things in law that don't allow people with the government ID to vote, like when you vote things into law that continues to go against the advancement of Black people. When you decide to not have it, when you decide to not champion any programs that would really help inner city children or inner city humans, You talk about, oh, we're the party that want to help you get on your feet and get you there. We're the party of entrepreneurs. I've never seen you guys have any kind of black entrepreneurship, fund or, trying to, some kind of advancement or like, backing anything truly for black people. You don't. You do things that are arbitrary. You do things that look good for a photo op, but everyone can smell and they can taste the disingenuousness that comes from you all. Because of what we're able to just truly and honestly see. Let's look at even how Governor DeSantis, the laws that he put in place, to go against protesters and stuff and things along those lines. It was a direct correlation to the Black Lives Matter marches and protests. No one says anything like, listen, it's you guys are real. Like I didn't see any Republican legislation reaction to the Proud Boys. There was none. And the reason there was none is because the way that the American history system is taught is that black is evil. Subconsciously, that's what it is. That's what it is. Because there's no reason that you people are afraid to have a conversation about equality the way that you run from it. Listen. It's not much else to say. It really isn't, because I was going to go into Tulsa, the massacre, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was going to get into that. I was going to get into the centennial event that was recently had, and how you had Joe Biden there telling black people that we're owed, and how because those kind of genocides were happening regularly. Like, did y'all know that Grand Central was originally was basically a black hub in a black town, and that white folks went in there and like slaughtered another community, arrested, just pillaged another community. See, within America and the American system, something that is known and it has not truly been taught to its full degree is how much and how many times we have gotten our shit together. We've had our own town. We had our own things. And then our government, the American government, you get so upset at us for doing that. You are so fragile within your own standing, just believing that, hey, listen, we did this to we were in control. This is what we did to black people for so long that there's no possible way in hell that black people can somewhat get equal or get in power, and they won't do to us what we did to them. That's your own guilty conscience, and your own guilty conscience does not allow you to want history to be taught the way it needs to be taught, because you know what's going to end up happening. A real true conversation on reparations would happen. Yes, and I don't give a fuck what people say. Oh, I didn't do that. Why should I have to pay for it? Because guess what? There are laws and there are ideals, there are identities in place that I am still affected by that you get to fucking go ahead and win by. Like talking about reparations. Did anyone say that we should give reparations to the individuals in the civil rights era? There was no conversation about it then, when it was legal for you motherfuckers to go ahead and lynch us and beat the shit out of us, do whatever the fuck you wanted to. We can have a conversation about reparations then. We gave the Japanese Americans reparations for when we put them in internment camps. We did that. We had them for internment camps for, I think, was like 3 or 4 years. We had Jim Crow enacted for over 100 years. Black people were enslaved before that. Black people are the only people within this country that continue to get spit on, continue to get beat on, continue to get disrespected, and we're supposed to sit there and smile. So while you punk motherfuckers want to run away from critical race theory, it just shows me your true colors. It shows me your true feelings on everything. I think you're all a bunch of hypocrites and a bunch of pussies, and I really think that you're racist. I really think that you're bigoted. And this is why, honestly, the Republican Party will always be painted as the party for racism. It's the reason that you're not going to get a mass of black individuals to actually vote for you. It's the reason why if a black man or a black woman says, I'm voting conservative, guess what? We within the community have to look at you differently, have to look at you weird. The reason being is because these motherfuckers won't even champion the true teaching of your history. They want to champion the whitewash of your history. They don't want to talk about where the word picnic came from, how picnic came from pick a nigger, which was then you take the nigger and then you hang him from a fucking tree and then you fucking sit there and dissect his body and you have pieces of his organs on the fucking table while you savages fucking eat. You don't want to talk about that part of history, do you? You don't want to talk about the part of history where you bomb pillaged and destroyed communities within America that were American communities. Look at Rosewood. What'd you do to Rosewood? You went in there, you went into a town, and you went and you shot and you beat and you pillaged black men and black women and black children. That's what you motherfuckers did. You don't want to talk about how your history, how the Ku Klux Klan came about because them motherfuckers were like some kind of superheroes to you. They're supposed to protect you from the bad black boogeyman. That's what you don't want to talk about. You don't want to talk about how truthfully these laws were made not for me to profit. You heard what Nixon wanted to do in '68. He wanted to go against the black community and the anti-war left because they were his fucking enemies. And then he said, we can go ahead, listen, we can arrest their leaders for this. We can, because of the heroin, because of this, because of that. They can tie whatever the fuck they want to. We have seen how this government went after Martin Luther King as well as Malcolm X because they were looking to decide to actually put people together. But they decided to go take those two out, and they also went out there and they made sure they took out every other black leader. You don't want to talk about how every time black people, the only thing black people ever want to do was to be seen equal, to be seen as the same. And you same fucking white people, I don't give a fuck if you're a white Republican, white Democrat, I don't give a fuck. Because it doesn't matter what you were called back then, but right now what you're called is a white Republican. It's you same fucking Republicans who want to sit there and ban the true teaching of my history, the true teaching of your ancestors' histories, of your history. Don't run from it, fucking embrace it. Embrace it so that we can move the fuck on. But the more that you fight against it, the more that I will sit here and say that you fucking Republicans are piece of shit fucking racists, and I don't give a motherfuck. Listen here, people. I know a lot of you motherfuckers listen to the show and said, oh, Dean really likes to lean to the right, lean to the right. I've been telling you some bitches, I call it like it is. And this shit is the reason why that people that look like me cannot vote for people who fucking are on the right, because you're fucking cowards. You're a fucking coward. Go ahead and face your history. Face the fact that you come from fucking monsters. Face it. It wasn't my people coming over here fucking destroying and fucking enslaving and fucking getting rid of goddamn generations. That was your fucking people in contemporary fucking history. So I don't want to hear no fucking white conservative calling somebody fucking racist or saying that something being taught is racist, because it's talking about what your true history and what this shit really is. I can honestly say this from the bottom of my heart. If you don't want critical race theory to be taught, if you're scared of it like that, do me a favor. Eat a dick and die slow, because Dean ain't here for it, and I don't give a goddamn of it. And guess what, baby? Yes, I am back, I am bigger, and I am badder than ever. You make sure you like, share, and fucking subscribe this shit if you a soldier of it. If you ain't a soldier of it, and this ain't here for you, because I'm not here for anybody else except for black people. People tend to forget that. Don't. You disrespect people who look like me, I come for everything you love. Ain't no peace over here. Ain't no love over here. Ain't nothing but straight hostility. Now, I am Dean. This has been Conversations with Dean.